My name is Honey K, and I am from the Bronx. Today, I have a pretty serious topic that was on my mind to discuss, and I just want to say my opinions on it and hopefully start a good discussion. And I want to talk about how there are different levels of sexual assault. And I'm using the word sexual assault, but I'm referring to RAPE. And I'm not going to say it for the sake of, I feel like you're not allowed to say that word. So let's call it PAVE, PAVE. First of all, this can be very triggering, and I respect everyone's story and their own truth, but I'm sure I will be offensive. I'm always offending someone, so I'm warning you just in case this is a sensitive topic for you. And I know men get paid too, but I don't know much of their stories, so I'm going to discuss women. This is why I thought of this topic. I was watching the Wendy Williams movie and documentary over the past 2 nights, and I enjoyed both of them. I watched the movie first and then the documentary. And in the movie, a man who was a celebrity forced himself on her, and in the documentary, when she was explaining it, she called it PAVE. And when I watched the movie, I didn't consider it PAVE because that happened to me and many women that I know who say it's technically PAVE, but they wouldn't press charges over it. So that brings me to this topic of there being different levels of PAVE, and they affect everyone differently. This was a traumatic experience for Miss Wendy, but when that happened to me, it definitely wasn't that much of a traumatic experience, and I don't hold any resentment against the person. I actually still would do anything for this man, but since he's so toxic, I blocked him. And I'll tell that story in a little bit, but throughout this podcast, I'm going to discuss the different levels of PAVE, but not in order of which I think is worse. Just kind of in chronological order of when they can happen in a woman's lifetime. So some women are paved at a very young age by a family member or a family friend. And depending on how aggressive and blatantly evil it is, I think it impacts the level of trauma. So regardless, being exposed to sex at an early age will have a major impact on development and behavior, whether it's through PAVE, through a movie, through walking in on your parents or anything like that. And early is subjective to whomever is listening, but for me, I think sex should be had and someone should be, you have to be taught it, obviously, in school, and I support that obviously you can get pregnant from it. But I think sex should be had once a person is done going through all the hormonal changes and surges, because those things cloud your judgment. But anyways, yes, this level of PAVE has happened to me. First of all, I was molested by random boys at a house party. I was at a house party and I was sleeping in a room upstairs because it was my family member's house that I was sleeping over. So I'm sleeping, and I guess they were having a party downstairs, and I never even came to the party at all. But I'm taking my nap or I'm asleep, and I wake up to the feeling of boys one boy touching my butt. And I think he went in my pants and was touching my butt, and guys around laughing. And even though I woke up, I stayed asleep. I didn't move or anything. I just kind of let it happen. And then they left the room, and then I heard my cousin come up the stairs, what are you guys doing? They were oh, we were looking for the bathroom. And then she showed them where the bathroom was, and I never mentioned it again. It just was what it was. I don't know who these people were. Just a random moment. And later in life, I was coerced into cunnilingus by a family member. And I think this was a hurt people situation. I feel like it probably happened to her, and she was a little older than me, and then she did it to me, not knowing if it was bad or whatever. And by that same family member, I was taught what masturbation was and how to do it while we were playing dolls. So I was exposed too early, definitely, but I don't have any resentment towards any of these people, nor do I feel like it's a painful memory. And I have no like desire to expose or press charges. It definitely impacted me. I know it impacts the way I have sex, the way I date, and I'm cognitive of that, but just not traumatized in a daunting manner. And some are paid as a child brutally and aggressively or by a really old person. And I think that's a really sad, a painful, evil experience. And if that happened to you, I'm sorry. Another level is what Miss Wendy called date pave. In my head, I thought date pave was when someone takes you on a date or is interacting with you at like a party or a club or something, and they slip a drug in your drink or in your food, and then they escort you to where they want to have their way with you, and then they pave you. That's what I thought date pave was. However, in the movie, they went on a date, and then they were going to go to a party, and he said he needs to go to his hotel room and change, and so he was like in the bathroom, and then he came out the bathroom with just a towel on, and he like got next to her, started like kissing her, touching her, and she's like pushing him off, but like still like flirty, laughy, because you're still like in the mindset like, oh, this is a date, like, and then next thing you know, he takes your panties off, and then you're like, oh no, I don't wanna, and then boop, he's inside of you. It was kind of like that, kind of like if you've seen For Color Girls, that scene where the girl had invited the guy over and she was cooking him dinner, and they had already been on some dates, and then he ended up paving her, but it was definitely more aggressive and more of a fight back from the girl in the For Color Girls scene. And for Miss Wendy, it was more of a just shock, like wasn't expecting that to happen, and he just kind of like slipped it in really, really fast. And so that's what she called date pave. And if that's date pave, then that happened to me orally by an ex-boyfriend. And it's honestly the most hurtful example of pave that I have. So I'm not even going to share it, like the details of it. But again, I'm not traumatized or hurt to the point where if I see this person, I would hug him. I'd literally still date him. He totally can't have me his way whenever he wants to have me his way. So, yeah, I had to block him and stay strong because it's just really toxic. And honestly, I'm more hurt about how he treated me afterwards than about what he actually did. And that could just be me being sick in the head or whatever. But I know other women who have that same experience for someone who quote unquote paved them. And I had watched a movie, and I cannot think of what the movie is, but I will write it in the description of my YouTube video when I post this podcast. And in the movie, this boy was getting paved, but he loved his paver. And it was by an older man that he trusted from church. And he loved him. And he didn't see anything wrong with it. He thought that was just their relationship because that's what he was manipulated into believing. And he was like sick and messed up over the situation. And I feel like I might be sick and messed up. I mean, it's worse because that was like a grown man with a child. But yeah, I just feel like I might just be a messed up person to still love and want to be with someone who treats me like that. But anyway, like I said, I blocked him because I'm remaining strong, and I know it's wrong, even though like I'm okay with it. I know it's wrong. And another level of pave is like gang pave, and that is surely traumatic. I've never experienced this, thank God. But ladies, we have to protect ourselves. Some consider that victim shaming, but at the end of the day, this is the 21st century and we're still in a man's world. They're stronger than us and things are in their favor. Yes, their parents should raise them right, but people are sick. We just have to remember that. So don't put yourself in a seedy situation where you end up in the wrong place at the wrong time if you value yourself and your life. Not to start preaching, but basically, I'm going to start preaching. Think about it. Like, even in the Bible, if you read Genesis chapter 34, there's this story of Dinah, and she basically got paved. And I don't think that's the only story in the Bible where someone got paved, but it's just to show that in the beginning of human history, women were paved. And she's not the only one, but I think she's the first. And overall, is it her fault? Well, her family, if you read the story, her family taught her whole life not to hang out with those people. They were called Canaanites, not to hang out with them. They even moved out of the land of Canaan and into another town to stay away from them because of how bad those people were. But Dinah wanted to keep hanging out with them. She wanted to be around them. She wanted to be their friend. And I think it was in broad daylight that man saw her and paved her. And ultimately, yes, he is in the wrong. But also, she wasn't protecting herself. She wasn't listening to the advice of the older people and her parents. And at the end of the day, even though he's ultimately in the wrong, you are the one who will have to live with those pangs, that pregnancy if it happens. And if it does happen, then that baby that probably looks like him, and that sexual trauma, and if you get STD or STI, you have to live with that infection. So at the end of the day, you want to protect yourself. You can't control others, only yourself. You can only control you. So protect yourself. And also, don't be a temptress. I support women wearing whatever they want, but like I said, people are sick. Okay, yes, you can get paved completely covered, and you can get paved completely half naked or completely naked, but the odds are against you just because you're a woman, period. So don't make the odds higher against you if you're dressed half naked. And sometimes when you're dressed that way or very scandalous or whatever, it can come across as like, oh, she don't respect herself. So it's like easier for a guy to reason to himself that he could just disrespect you. Like, you asking for it, you want it, you don't got no respect for yourself and taking it. And that's how some of them think. And is their thinking right? Heck no, but just do what you gotta do to protect yourself. Anyways, there are more levels of pave, and you can be paved by someone you've already dealt with or in a relationship with, and you can be willing to have sex with that person, and then they start paving you. Like in the middle of the act, there's this movie called O. It's like O 2001. And it's based off the story Othello, but it's a really good movie. I actually recommend it. But there's this one scene where he's having sex with his girlfriend who he suspects is cheating. And she lost her virginity to him. And I don't remember if in this scene it was their first time or if they had already been having sex. I think they had already been having sex, but she definitely lost her virginity to him. But because of how experienced she seems when they're doing it, that feeds into his narrative that she's cheating. And he's really going crazy over the fact that he thinks that this girl is cheating. And he looks over in the mirror while they're doing it, and he starts envisioning her sleeping with someone else. And then he starts being extremely aggressive on top of her. And he starts paving her. Like, they're already in the act. She was like willing. She was on top at one point. But he just starts thinking about something else and starts paving her. And he's so in his head, he's completely out of tune with the fact that she's screaming, stop, and crying. And some men have had their manhood challenged, insulted, or taken away from them in some way. And this is a reason, not an excuse, but that can cause them to sometimes need to feel powerful, and they'll take it out on a woman or their woman because they can overpower us. So that's where they get to feel powerful. And yeah, it's a slippery slope, sad story, but it's the world that we live in. So overall, let me just say, as readily available as free sex is, anyone committing PAVE just is in need or in desire of the force aspect of it. So just be careful. It's very common, and there's a saying that goes, all women know another woman who has been paved, but no men know a man who has paved someone. And not to say men don't know anyone who has paved someone, but they never admit it, say it. Clearly they might be friends with these people, or maybe they've done it too, so they all have something that is like dirt on each other. I don't know. But yeah, it's sad. Like, I can point to a bunch of women who've been paved, but if I ask my male friends who all has paved someone, they don't have a bunch of men to point to. They might, but are they actually pointing to them? I guess it depends on the case in point. Anyways, I'm going to stop there. Don't want to get too triggering in this podcast. It's a really sensitive, sad, horrible, evil subject, but it is the world we live in. And like I said, I was watching that movie and it made me want to discuss this topic. So thank you for listening to my 7th podcast. How did you like it? Leave a like if you like it. Leave a like if you like it and agree. Leave a dislike if you don't like it or disagree. And let me know what you think. This podcast is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, pretty much anywhere a podcast can be streamed. And I also post it on YouTube. You can follow me on Instagram at honeykay on YT. Thanks for listening and have a great day.